Hi everybody! So I made a post a couple months ago saying that I paid over $20,000 to my student loans last year. So someone asked me if I could explain how I did that, so I wanted to make a video because that would just be way easier. So I have 10 tips on how I paid over $20,000 to my student loans in 2019. My backstory is I got my first degree right after college and I had no idea what loans were, what interest was, debt, how credit cards worked. I didn't know any of that. So I just signed my loans, wasn't thinking anything of it. And then 4 years later, you have to sign that paper that says, oh yeah, this is how much you owe, and we want to make sure you know that. By the time I had to sign that paper, I knew that the route I wanted to go, I wanted to work in social work or a domestic violence shelter or something like that. I realized that wasn't going to pay off my $50,000 of school debt. So I took a semester off, and I originally wanted to do grad school, but I didn't want to go. This is my bird seaweed. I didn't want to go more in debt and still not make enough to be able to pay off all my loans. So I took a semester off, and then I realized that I wanted to do nursing school, which yes, would put me in more debt. However, I knew that I would always have a job and I could work anywhere. And I really like that flexibility, and there's so many different kinds of nursing. I get bored easily, so I just liked how I could switch it up if I wanted to. I did that. And I graduated in 2018. I started working in June of 2018, and it's been a little over a year and a half. When it was all said and done, I owed, I believe, around $94,000, something crazy like that. Yes, it does make me want to vomit. The 6 months that I worked in 2018, I paid off my credit card and my car. And then the only debt I had after that was my student loans. So starting in 2019 is when I really cracked down and wanted to make a huge dent. I didn't get any help from any family members or anything in 2019, so this was all the salary I made and paying all my bills on my own. My first tip would to be get organized. I have this planner. I got it from Barnes & Noble. It says 2020. I had the same one last year. And I never really get anything twice, so you know it's good if I'm buying it again. In the very back, it has a note section. I have the 3 loans that I'm paying for. This one was my little loan. I paid that one off a couple months ago. This is my big loan. It's actually, I think, like 15 loans all in one, but I just look at the total amount. And then this is a personal loan that I took with a family member that is allowing me to pay it back without interest. I write the total that is due, and each time I make a payment, I cross it out and put the new total. And then for my month-to-month view, I have when I'm getting paid. So I have the 12th and 26th of March is when I'll be getting paid. And then over here, I write down all the bills for the month. And I split it up, what I'm going to be paying on the 12th and what I'm going to be paying on the 26th. So I add all of the bills up. I subtract it from what I'm going to be getting paid. I leave enough for food and gas, and anything else goes straight to my debt. So I don't allow myself to feel like I have any extra money because I feel like it would be more painful that way. So I get paid Wednesday night at 2 a.m. I'm logging on to my bank account at Wednesday at 2 a.m., paying all of my payments, leaving just enough for food and gas, and maybe if I have anything else planned for the next couple weeks, but everything else goes straight to my loans. And I feel like I don't miss it because I feel like I never really had it in the first place. And that's really the mindset that you have to have when you want to pay off your loans or any debt, because if you are always thinking that it's your money, it's much harder to give it away. My second tip is short-term and long-term goals. For me, my long-term goals are I want to have everything paid off 3 years from now. So that means my short-term goals are I have about $74,000 more to pay. So I divide 74 by 3, and then that number I divide by 12, and that's what I need to pay every month. I can do that, that's great. If I can do a little more, that's even better, but sometimes I come short. But it's just to keep my eye on the path and to keep going to try to pay it off in 3 years. It's just much easier to stay focused when you have goals that you can look at and make sure you're staying on track. My third tip is to stay motivated. For me, I learned about Dave Ramsey and I followed him on Instagram, and I followed the hashtag debt-free community on Instagram. There's tons of people trying to pay off their debt. It's pretty amazing. So some people break it down to the dollar amount of what they're spending each month. And some people just post how much they've spent this month on debt or how much they've spent this whole year on their debt. A lot of people post about when they paid it all off and how many years. So it's really inspiring. Whenever I'm feeling like I'm not getting anywhere, I look up that hashtag and I see people making moves and what's helping them. So it's definitely helpful. But I would recommend to make sure you are staying on your own path and not comparing yourself to others. Which brings me to my next tip. Tip 4, focus on your own journey. When I go onto that hashtag, I will see some people paying off $100,000 in just a few months. And it's really easy to be like, how did you do that and what kind of money are you making? But I have to remind myself I am on my own path, making my own money, paying off my own debt. These people have a completely different life than me. Who knows what resources other people have or what else is in their life. So it's really important to stay focused on what you're making and what you owe. And do not worry about everyone else and do not compare yourself to anyone else. I know it's probably not going to be possible for a lot of people to pay off $20,000 to their debt like I did, because if you're only making a little over that, then obviously that's not going to work. But if you use the tips that I'm giving you, you can definitely make a dent in it at least. But I can't stress that enough. I think that's one of the most important tips, is to really focus on yourself. Do not compare. Let other people inspire you, but do not let other people bring you down or make you feel like you're not doing good enough. The fifth tip is to pay off your credit card and build a savings. Make a savings so that you do not have to keep using your credit card. And I know it's a very tricky thing to get out of. It took me years. I had a credit card right after high school and I used it to buy books, and it took me probably 7 or 8 years, I think, to completely get rid of it. I didn't ever try to get rid of it though. I would just pay the minimum and keep adding. And my mindset was, oh, I'll take care of that later. I'll take care of that later. But when you realize how much money you're paying a month in interest, you're never going to pay it off if you don't attack it. So I would stop using your credit card, make a savings. I would recommend at least $500 to $1,000. I like to do a little more than that just because of my pets and all of that. Whatever number makes you comfortable. Put that in your savings. Don't use your credit card anymore. Get your credit card down, and then you can start to attack your student loans. So my sixth tip is work more. I am so lucky that I have lots of opportunity for overtime. Pretty much any day that I want to work more, I can. For 2019, I pretty much worked an extra shift, which is 12 and a half hours every 2 weeks. So nothing too crazy. And that is one of the main reasons why I was able to put so much towards my student loans. Any extra shift that I worked, I never had it in my head that I was making extra money. It would just immediately go to my student loans. If you do not have the opportunity to work overtime, I would recommend to get a second job, maybe something just a few hours a week or like 5 to 10 hours on the weekend. And if that is not possible for you for whatever reason, I know a lot of people can't do that with their family and other responsibilities. That brings me to my next tip. My 7th tip is to sell things. For me, I used Amazon Seller to sell a lot of my books, and I made a pretty good profit off of that. Another thing is you can sell your clothes. There's Poshmark, Depop. Those are apps that you can use on your phone, and there are stores like Plato's Closet. I prefer Plato's Closet because I'd rather just do it in person all at once. You could also have a garage sale. Another thing I did was I sold artwork. I do have a Cricut, so I was able to make some pieces of art with that. And there's tons of things that you could do online. There's a bunch of tutorials, so if like arts and crafts is your kind of thing and you want to make a profit off of it, you definitely can. I also sold some stained glass pieces. I didn't actually do any last year, but I had some leftovers from prior years, and I sold that around Christmas time. People will definitely buy your art around Christmas. And finally, I just posted a lot of stuff on Instagram and Facebook, and a lot of friends and family bought stuff. Like I posted like water bottles and lamps that I didn't want anymore, and most of the stuff that I post would get sold. So look around your house, pick out things that you don't want, put it in a box, and sell it gradually. And you can easily make good money off of it. My 8th tip is sacrifices. If you want to pay off your debt, you have to make sacrifices. There's just no other way around it. It doesn't really matter what your salary is if you're making $30,000 a year versus $1 million a year. If you are living like you make that money, you are not going to be able to pay off your debt. So if you're making, let's say, $80,000 a year, you need to live below your means, live like you're making 50, and all of that extra goes to your loans. But if you're making $80,000 and spending money like you make $80,000, you're never going to pay off your debt. Same if you're making millions. It really doesn't matter how much you make, it's the mindset that you have to have. I understand if you're living in poverty, this probably doesn't apply to you, because you can't sacrifice on eating. But most people are in debt, and not everyone is living in poverty. So for the people who aren't in poverty, there's obviously something going on, and your mindset needs to shift to be able to live below your means and pay off your debt. For me, I figured out what my wants versus my needs were. Like, I was really bad at buying home stuff like pillows and candles. In order for me to stop doing that, I just stopped going to the stores where I would spend a lot of money. Like Target and Home Goods and all of those cute home stores. I just had to stop going into, because like one time I bought an egg. I don't even really celebrate Easter. Why did I need an egg? And it was only $5, but all of those $5 things add up, and that's $100 eventually that you can put towards a credit card. One thing that really helps me with that is if I'm walking by something that I really like, and I'm going back and forth between if I want it or not, I ask myself, let's say it's $20, I say, would I rather have this item or would I rather have $20? And most of the time I do pick the $20. And if you still can't decide, you can always put it back, and when you're done with your shopping trip, if you still really want it, you can get it. Or you can put it back, check out, go home, and if you're still thinking about it then, go and get it. That's what I do. So if I'm really can't decide if I want it, if I'm still thinking about it days later, then I allow myself to go get it. That way you're not completely shutting yourself off from spending the money that you're making. For coffee, I would go to Starbucks pretty much every day, so I stopped doing that. And now I go to Dunkin' because it's like half the price but double the coffee. That was something I didn't want to sacrifice, was being able to buy coffee, because I really enjoy that every day. You don't have to completely get rid of everything. You can still enjoy life. It's just being really smart and actually thinking about it. I didn't want to sacrifice on food because it's something I really, really enjoy, is going out and eating and experimenting with all the local restaurants. But I'm still aware of wanting to save money when I do go out, so I try to not drink sodas because that's like $3 that you could save. So I just get water most of the time and then just drink sodas at home. And then if I'm looking at 2 items on the menu that I really want, I'll just buy the cheaper one. One of my biggest sacrifices I made was not going on vacation. I was really looking forward to that when I started working, and then I realized that that's a huge chunk of money that I could save and pay towards my loans. So I just do staycations, which I actually really do enjoy. I did allow myself to take one on my birthday. It was somewhere that we could drive to and we didn't have to buy plane tickets for. I would actually make a list of what you could sacrifice. I mean, you don't want to, but you could, and then what you definitely cannot sacrifice. And then just like take a month and think about it and start one by one, like getting rid of or cutting back on those certain things. And that will definitely help you shift to be able to save money and take that money and put it towards your debt. And my 9th tip is make or bake. And this has to do with giving people gifts, especially around the holidays. If you are in debt, you should not be buying people gifts. For me, I have a huge family, so I could easily spend $500 on Christmas, and not even getting really good gifts. That's just how many people are in my family. So last year I told them, do not get me anything. I'm not going to get you anything. There were a few people that I did get gifts for, but I was really conscious of how much I was spending, and I capped myself off at a certain amount. If that's really important to you, you could always say, don't go over $20 or X amount, whatever you're comfortable with. You should never be putting Christmas gifts on your credit card to be further in debt. That's not what the holidays are about, and you shouldn't have to go more in debt to show someone that you love them. So back to the original tip, make or bake. You can always make things, or even get other people to make things that might be a little cheaper, or you can bake stuff. Everyone loves food, everyone loves desserts, and you can get crafty with it. So when it comes to gift giving, it's okay to not give them. It's okay to have the conversation with your friends and family and say, let's not do gifts this year. And if it really is important to you, there's ways to do it way cheaper. It shouldn't be a competition. And just have that conversation beforehand with your friends and family. Just say, look, I'm not in the place to be spending a lot of money on people. I need to get my finances together. And they should understand that. And if they don't, well, that sounds like it's their problem. My 10th tip is how I actually pay them off. What I do is I look at how much interest I'm giving. So whichever loan is getting the most interest from me is the one I pay off first. And a lot of people don't recommend that way. They recommend the lowest loan so that you can see and have that satisfaction of paying loans off. And then some people do highest interest. But I am really fueled by the hatred I have for these companies getting my money. That is my number one driver in paying off my loans, is giving away so much money a month just in interest. So I look at how much interest I'm paying, and whichever one is the highest is the one I attack first. So you could have a lower loan with a really high interest, and you're paying more interest on that than a really high loan with a lower interest. So I just always calculate it, which I love basic math like that anyway, and that's how I pay it off. If you don't want to do all of that, that's completely fine, but you should figure out what works best for you and pay it off that way. And if you do need to see results, if you're that type of person that you need to see something paid off, then I would recommend doing the lowest first and then just snowballing. So let's see, for my small loan, it started at $10,000, and I ended up paying like $13,000, so I paid $3,000 in interest. Let's just say I paid $300 a month on the small one. I take that $300 and then I add it to the minimum of the next one that I want to pay. Let's say the minimum is $100, so now I'm paying $400 for that loan, and then when that one's paid off, I take that $400 and add it to the next loan I want to pay off. Let's say that one's $100 as well, so then that's $500. So it snowballs, and then you start to pay them all off pretty quickly. And that is how I paid over $20,000 to my student loans, and I really hope that helps some people or motivates people. Please let me know if you have any other questions. We want a debt-free life for everyone. It is exhausting and ruins your life, and we don't want it anymore. So let's pay off our debt.